Intelligent Talk, 1170 KCBQ.
All right, folks. Hey, welcome. You're listening to the Love Network, and this show is It's All About the Car.
Why, yes, it is, Dave.
How you doing, buddy? That's J. Daniel Jones, folks. If you have not heard that raspy little voice, he is all about the car, and I tell you, it's like sitting on the edge of your seat, seeing what he's going to do next. So
there you go. I try to keep you surprised.
I love it, man.
Every week I come up with a surprise.
So what do you got today?
Today we're talking about Model A's, and I got a gentleman that knows everything there is to know about Model A, and he may have the very best collection of Model A memorabilia in the world. I don't know. It could be.
We'll find out.
Well, I don't know that he knows, but I bet you it's in the top 5 for
I'm sure it is. And don't forget, this segment's brought to you by San Diego Gear and Axle, 619-447-1588 if you want to get your undercarriage taken a look at. All right. So back to your...
There it is. You got to roll the show open first, Dave.
Let's do it.
Wait till you see what they did to my car.
175, 200,000 on the LS6, 200,000.
Pull out the 8-track and turn up the AM. It's time for It's All About the Car. With me, Dan the Carman Jones, and the godfather of all things automotive, Dave Stahl.
We're here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now we can talk, Dave.
Yeah, really. I mean, I'll get your format down here one of these days. But I'm just so excited about Model A's. You know, it's kind of that unsung hero.
It is. Everybody knows about Model Ts. Everybody knows about flathead V8s. But the Model A, it was called Henry's Lady, and you're going to hear about it pretty soon. Let's roll our history, and then we can come back and talk about it.
Okay.
Henry Ford was the leading manufacturer of American automobiles in the early 1900s. He revolutionized the young automobile industry by developing the assembly line method of production. By manufacturing his own parts and developing a huge system of conveyors to bring the parts to the assembly line, Ford reduced the costs of manufacturing automobiles.
But in 1926, the Model T had been in production for 18 years. And although there were certainly cosmetic differences and a virtual plethora of different body styles, the basic engineering was very much like the original car that rolled off the line in 1908. Engine, transmission, brakes, and suspension were all basically very old designs in an industry that was booming, albeit a boom virtually created by the vehicle now being left behind in the technological dust of automotive innovation. Sales were plummeting, and under constant pressure to reinvent the product, pressure exerted by the market, Ford senior management, their sales force, and his only child Edsel, Henry Ford finally relented. It was time for a new car. It was likely with a mixture of sadness, trepidation, and one might imagine some pride that Henry Ford watched the last Model T roll off the assembly line on May 26, 1927. It was car number 15 million. And with that, the great assembly line, yet another innovation that was developed at Ford, fell silent for 6 long months. The retooling had begun for the next great Ford. The heir to the dynasty, Edsel Ford, had been working in secret on such a vehicle, with all the modern conveniences that the now car-hungry public were demanding. This prototype was to be the basis of the all-new Ford, whose eventual name reflected a true new beginning, the Model A. Ford would eventually spend $100 million on the development of the new Ford car, as it was referred to both internally before the release and by the public once introduced. And the Model A was indeed a true new Ford car. It was designed from the ground up and was completely different from the Tin Lizzie, so much so that one of the more popular entertainers of the period, Irving Kaufman, released his ode to the new car. Henry's Made a Lady Out of Lizzie.
Have you seen her? Ain't she great? She's something you'll appreciate. I'm sure you understand just what I mean. Everybody, everywhere is falling for her now. I'm talking about the new Ford, and boy, it sure's a wow. Lay off, people, lay off, folks. None of your sarcastic jokes. Henry's made a lady out of Lizzie. No more bruises, no more aches. Now she's got those four-wheel brakes. Henry's made a lady out of Lizzie. She's even got a rumble seat. And lots of
The engine was still an inline L-head four-cylinder, but it was a little bit bigger than the Model Ts, with 201 cubic inches of displacement versus 177. But it was twice as powerful, providing 40 horsepower instead of 20. The transmission was the more universally adopted clutch, brake, accelerator, shift lever arrangement, with 3 forward gears and a reverse. There was also an actual water pump, a speedometer, hydraulic shock absorbers, as well as brakes on all 4 wheels. And after crash testing severely injured one of the senior Ford engineers, the Model A was also the first car to have a safety glass windshield. The Model A also incorporated as standard equipment an electric starter. A feature that Ford figured would be of great interest to prospective female customers, and one that was heavily promoted in the ladies' magazines of the day. Ford himself had very little interest or involvement in the cosmetics of the new car, leaving the actual design to a team led by his son Edsel. Instead, Henry Ford was directly involved in the mechanical and logistical aspects of building the new car in mass quantities, incorporating new technologies and production methods in what would eventually be termed DFM, or Design for Manufacturability. Although the first car rolled off the newly retooled assembly line on October 20th of 1927, they were not officially released until December 2nd of that year. Almost immediately, orders far exceeded the supply. The Ford machine immediately used its mass-producing expertise to ramp up production to 4,000 cars a day, which was still not enough. The Model A was in high demand, and Henry could sell as many as he could make, just the type of challenge he lived for. Production of the Model A peaked in June of 1930 at 9,200 cars a day. 13 months after the introduction, 1 million Model A's had been sold. It only took an additional 5 months to hit the 2 million mark. 8 months later, by March of 1930, there were 3 million Model A's on the road, in an increasingly wide variety of over 30 different body styles, including 4 different styles of pickup trucks. Ford ceased production of the Model A in 1931, 1 year after tonight's featured vehicle was built, a 1930 Model A closed cab pickup. Ed Woodruff is an active collector of not only Model A Ford vehicles, but Model A memorabilia of all types, including rare factory accessories and original advertising. He is a member of the San Diego chapter of the Model A Restorers Club and Model A Ford Club of America. He has been the president twice, the parade director once, and is currently the membership chair for the second time around. He is also the club's historian, which makes him a particularly appropriate guest for tonight's broadcast. When we come back from the break, we'll talk with Ed about his clubs, and America's continuing fascination with the short but prolific automotive masterpiece that is known, in song at least, as Henry's Lady, the Model A Ford.
If you're looking to supplement your retirement plan, consider a reverse mortgage from MetLife Home Loans. Now with reduced upfront.
Intelligent Talk, 1170 KCBQ.
From
All right, folks. Hey, you're listening to It's All About the Car. This segment's brought to you by the good folks at West Escondido Auto and Trans. Looking for a good, honest shop, 760-741-0071. They're in the Escondido area. Just tell them Dave sent you.
Hey, Dave, before we get into the interview, I do want to tell our listeners that they are going to want to see this beautiful Model A pickup truck. And they can go to my website, our website, it'sallaboutthecar.com, www.it'sallaboutthecar.com, and go to the photo gallery, and there is a bunch of pictures of Ed and his beautiful Rubelite Model A pickup truck.
Oh, it's a pickup truck.
It's a pickup truck. I know it's all about the car, pickup truck. That's okay.
Well, I mean, we were just talking about Model A's, and all of a sudden you threw a pickup truck
It's
in
a
there.
Model A pickup truck.
No, but I love pickup trucks.
Oh, and this is a really cool one. Now, I mentioned that Ed, thank you for being on the program, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
I guess we might as well get you in and let you talk a little bit, huh?
Great. I appreciate the opportunity to come and discuss the Model A Ford. It's one of my great passions.
It is one of your great passions, and you would not believe how much Model A stuff Ed has just crammed into his house.
I can imagine.
It is amazing.
But why?
Well, when you get bit by this hobby, I was one who was bitten very, very hard. And there's so many
At very, very
aspects.
very young age? Or?
Not real young, actually. I was a speech pathologist for a local school district, and I wanted something else to do with my profession as well as something different. And that allowed me to try Fords. I'd always been interested in cars, but I didn't really know which one I wanted to center on. And I went out one day to this local club was having a fun meet, and I saw the cars, and I fell in love with them. My father actually had one, but not when I was around.
Right.
So,
now, Ed, you told me once that you actually joined the club before you had a car.
I did. I actually did.
And you were actually like an officer in the club before you had the car.
That's true. I wound up being president before I actually had the car.
But, we find, and that's really good that you bring that up, because a lot of people that are enthusiasts may not realize that you can join 99% of the car clubs out there without owning a car.
Absolutely.
And it's a good idea, because if you are interested in that car, where are you going to find the information?
And what a better place to buy one than from a fellow club member that's just as passionate about the car as you are.
Absolutely. And he knows you're going to see him every month at the meeting,
It was definitely the way to go, because they can also help you in the process of restoring the car tremendously.
Right.
And isn't that where you got your beautiful Model A pickup truck?
It belonged to actually our newsletter editor, and her husband passed away, and they no longer wanted the pickup.
Sure.
They had used it as a touring vehicle. It was pretty tired when I got it, but everything was there.
Oh, wow. That's the key.
Absolutely.
The key. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get it into the incredible, as it rolled off the assembly line condition?
You're very kind, Dan. I don't know if it's quite that close, but
I think it's better. I've
actually,
seen it. It's got to be better. They didn't pay that much attention.
They really
pumping
didn't.
out 9,000 a day.
Exactly. Yeah, about a year and a half. Took it all. I'd driven it for a while, and then I took it all the way down to frame and redid it with the original factory color. When I first bought it, it was kind of a ochre yellow. And I wanted something that was really factory original.
And the red was a factory?
Yes, Rubelite was one of them. Ditzler was the company that painted cars for Ford, and they have an actual book where you can go through and get chips.
So you got the code and everything.
The difficulty now is that most of the paints are not lead-based, and they were then. So getting the colors, you have to match it as close as you can.
Yeah.
And, Dave, you always like to quote Mr. Ford. In the Model A, they didn't offer black.
Right.
It was
they did not even offer it?
Well, they had the pickups, you could get them in a black color, and they had some cars that were actually in black as well. But one thing that you do notice with them,
I'm hurt.
Oh,
Wikipedia is dry. Okay, I'm taking them off my list.
I didn't like that.
No
Wikipedia.
research.
Actually, there were parts of the Model A that were always black. Fenders,
right,
and different types of interior parts of the car were always
radiator
black. Cowl. And the reason for this was that Henry Ford went to Japan and found a very fast-drying black paint. So by the time the part came out on the assembly line, it was dry and ready to go on the car.
Right.
I mean, Henry wouldn't have cared if it had been purple, for that matter.
Well, that's true, too. He was such an innovator for his time. Was not a fun person to work for.
No.
But, and everybody thought, oh, wow, he's paying $5 a day. Yeah, well, guess what? You're going to earn it.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a very intense process, particularly they had 3 shifts going on when they were building the Model A.
Sure.
It ran practically 24 hours a day. And working on that on assembly line, you had to be productive, and you had to be on it all the time.
Yeah, and there's no air conditioning. There was no heat.
Noise level factors incredible.
Oh, and there was no ear protection. I mean, there was no Well, let's get blunt. There was no protection for the worker.
No, they
period.
had all those belts zipping around and stuff.
Man.
People died.
Yeah,
there.
if you wadded somebody or lost somebody, moving right along.
Moving along, sure.
Now, you and I were kind of talking about it, and you said that that ran from what, 29 to
1928 to 1931.
Okay, and then 32, it just pretty much wiped out that whole last gen.
It became the B, Model B Ford, which Henry Ford had bad experiences with six-cylinder engines, and so he went right to the V8.
Yeah,
which made him very popular with the criminal element
Initially,
of
it
the
wasn't
time.
that much more horsepower than the Model A actually had, but it was definitely an invention. The biggest problem they had before was casting the block for a V8. It was difficult to do, and Henry Ford was able to do it.
Right.
So one of the things about him, his engineering and preciseness of what he wanted made for a car at as low price as it was really quite phenomenal.
Well, speaking about his engineering, one of the things that was interesting is he didn't really care so much about how the car looked. The Model A, that was designed by Edsel. He goes, you take care of that. Don't worry about it. I want to find out how to make it good and cheap.
He did. He used even a whole series of engineering design metal blocks designed by the man by the name of Johansson that made these very, very precise. So everything was lined up exactly the same over and over again.
And he was the first green manufacturer.
He
now,
was.
Now,
he was everything.
looking back on it, he was probably not considered. He's probably considered frugal, cheap. What do you want to call him? But bring him to today's society, he'd be a star.
He would be.
Because he used
Absolutely.
everything. I mean, the pencil right down to the rubber, little eraser on the end. I mean, he didn't waste a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably got in a lot of trouble if you did.
You did. And he found different ways to use all kinds of byproducts, cement products, wood products, numerous kinds of things. He even worked a lot with soybean and designing. He designed an entire car out of soybean.
Now, you were talking
really
to
did?
Yes, he did.
You were talking to us earlier about that the Model A's has the largest club following in the world for any car.
It does.
Which is hard to believe. You would think muscle cars, you would think
No,
almost
well,
anything, but
wouldn't you-
Model A's have the most members.
But wouldn't you say that the Model A was probably the most hot-rodded car in the
Definitely.
Ford line?
But particularly later on, as time came on, people were chopping them.
And that's
putting
why you don't
big
see as
V8s
many of them
and
around
things
as you.
right.
And that and jalopy racing.
You know, there's a lot of controversy about whether you should do that or not. I think there's room for both in the hobby, and
I
tend to
don't.
be in the Model A club.
Now the rat
somewhat
rods.
Leave 'em alone.
but-
You see what
Leave
they're
'em
doing?
alone,
See what the
yeah.
rat rods are doing
Oh,
to
no.
them?
Is
For
the
us that-
tease.
us that are purists, that's kind of sacrilege, but it's
just amazing.
Look, they
see
made
what happens to
15
them.
million T's. They made, what, 5
5
million
million.
A's.
Mhm.
Do the T's. Leave the A's alone.
You know,
Mm.
and that when you mentioned that about Henry, or actually when you mentioned that he could care less what it looked like. If you look at the Model T, that was 99.9% functionality.
That's it.
Exactly.
Just to go in the
Utilitarian.
ruts, just to climb over the all the
he
rough
came-
terrain.
Henry Ford came to all this because he hated farm work and he wanted a way to make this
Oh,
easier.
imagine
And
that.
But the master of what he was doing, though, is his ability to manufacture things in great numbers and to sell them to the American public.
The assembly line was probably one of the
Absolutely.
smartest things he came up with.
Particularly
And-
the moving assembly line.
Yeah,
Well, and there's
yeah,
models. You can actually
Yeah.
buy a model of the Model T Ford assembly line from
Mhm.
most of your reputable hobbyists. But
It was just how to pump them out.
Yeah.
How to pump them out, get faster. Hey, we're going to run out of time, and I want to talk about we talked a little bit about clubs. I want to talk about the San Diego chapter club.
Oh, very
Tell
good.
us what you guys do with the Model A's
and how to
where
find
the
out about
events
you.
are and all that.
Well, you can go. We have a website, San Diego Model A Club is what it's called.
Okay, I've got that
Model A
link,
Club.
and I've neglected to put it on my website, but it will be on there
Oh,
this
great.
evening, I promise.
We meet the second Friday of every month in the San Carlos Recreation Center in La Mesa. It's off,
okay.
it's off of Lake Baden Street.
Right.
And encourage anybody to come to our meetings that are interested in Model A Fords.
how many in the club?
Right now we have over 100,
Okay.
and we're averaging pretty about 75 at each meeting lately. The last two we've had for this year. So the enrollment's growing, and we really encourage you to come because you can find out a lot of interesting things about
Well,
the
it's a
car.
great bunch of people too.
And it's a tremendous bunch of people. That's one of the things that's been so wonderful for me is the number of great people I have met and helped me so much with restoring the car. I wasn't that much of a mechanic, but these guys are willing to help me say things like, Ed, had you thought about maybe turning it this way? They're really, they don't put you down.
and they'll
for not
come to
being
your
able do
house
that.
and start working
Oh,
right there
yeah.
with you.
Listen, you have trouble on the road, they're under the car hood
Yeah.
before you are.
Ed, tell us a little bit about driving your car. When I was asking you about it originally, you said, yeah, it'll do 65 miles an hour with a strong
Well, a lot of
backwind
people,
going
say that
downhill.
it's difficult if you sit there and drive the car all day long at 65 miles an hour. It wasn't designed for that.
It doesn't like it.
It doesn't like it. You can, but it's on a good day with the tailwind behind you, I think. But the things you have to learn kind of how to drive all over again. Getting on and off of a freeway, you don't have that punch ability to zoom it up and down.
But we
that
didn't
sort of
have
thing.
that in 32
You
or
didn't have
31
that.
or 28 to 32. We just didn't have that.
Exactly.
So, but when you see people trying, you don't normally. But I guess the rule of thumb is when you see somebody going down a road in a classic car, give them berth. Give them as much room, space, because your brakes aren't as good as ours.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop as quick, even though you're not going as quick. But stopping can be a challenge at
Don't
times.
be hanging out the window with your phone trying to take a picture of it.
That's right. What people tend to do is they start looking at you instead of where they're going. They'll drive right into you.
Oh yeah, they will. They'll go right where they're looking.
Right.
I know it scares you half to death.
But we try to stay on tours and things that the club does. We do tours and parades, and we try to stay on the weekends and generally a lot of times on Sunday and stay off the freeway as much as we can. But in Southern California, what are you going to do?
How are you going to do it? I mean, that's why you got the car.
Exactly.
So
our job in our club real goal is to get those cars out and drive them, not just have museum pieces.
There you go. And by the way, it's nice of you to bring your lovely wife in as well.
Well, it's actually not my wife, but my constant companion, Peggy Dalby, and she rides with me all the time.
There you go. She's your head mechanic?
Yeah, a lot of times, yeah.
She can crawl underneath there, switch a plug quicker than anybody.
One more thing about Ed. I told you he has a billion Model A things. He has 400 of the 900 ads that were made for the Model A.
And he's still looking.
He did, and he brought the big book just in case he ran out of things to say. I knew that wasn't going to happen. Hey, guess what we're having next week?
What?
I know you were giving me a little grief.
I wasn't.
You were giving me a little grief about a pickup truck. Next week we're having a Land Rover, 1973 Land Rover.
And
very cool, very nice.
Daniel, appreciate the time to come on and talk about the Model A, and hope we get to do it again.
We'll get you down to KUSI and put some limelight on the club and get some more people because you need younger kids to join these clubs.
Absolutely.
Because you know what? You don't own that pickup truck. You're
got
nothing more than a curator.
We're a caretaker.
That's right. We'll be back in a moment.
Wait, and it's www.itsallaboutthecar.com. Go there to download, listen to this episode, send me messages, volunteer your car. I'm always looking.
There you go. That's a heck of a good deal. You ought to know. Coming up next with Dave and Cody on KCBQ AM 1170. This is the Love Network.
Don't